Welcome to Good Goodbyes, the Funeral Facts podcast. We are really glad you found us. In this podcast, me, Simon, a funeral director,
and me, Tina, I'm an independent celebrant.
we're going to discuss all things funeral in an informal space to demystify what happens when we say goodbye.
Based on your questions and queries, Si and myself are two industry professionals that are going to chat through the hows, whats and wherefores. We actively work in the funeral industry in Devon in the UK. So, we hope you enjoy the episode ahead. Welcome to Good Goodbyes.
Hello and welcome to Good Goodbyes with me, Si.
And me, Tina.
And today we are going to talk about the end of the end, the exit at the end of the service. And it sounds a very specific thing to talk about. It sounds like we're talking about a moment. But actually, there's a huge variance in how to do this, what's best for the family, what's best for the individual. And some of it is a little bit situational. So it should be a good chat.
Yeah. So what we mean is like when things are coming to a close and you've either had the committal, if it's in a crematoria, or you've had the final moment of committing at the graveside and the person has been lowered and everything's coming to an end at that point. You finish the service. How can you have that final moment? How can that ending point feel right? And there, as Si says, there are quite a number of choices. What sort of things can happen in a sort of chapel or maybe a setting like a village hall or something? Si, what have you seen?
So, and I think this is the thing, isn't it? That in the different situations, different venues, the choice is yours as to what to do, and it can be difficult. And you do get sometimes people sort of look at each other and what do we do now? And I suppose in a crematorium chapel or a venue where the coffin isn't going to move, then the onus is on the congregation to stand and to leave. And when we talked about this sort of beforehand here, we mentioned that in itself opens up pathways. Does everyone leave? Do the family stay and have a moment to themselves? Do you close the curtains or do you leave them open? Do people touch the coffin on the way out or lay a flower? It really is a huge, huge part of the service for such a small moment. And there's so much choice there as to what can be done. And again, venues, it's quite specific at. So our local crematorium, or most local, they're kind of equidistant, I suppose. One of them, where the catafalque is, and that's the platform that the coffin sits on, for those that don't know when I'm saying the word catafalque, where the catafalque is, the curtain then comes round it, but it actually intrudes into the room quite heavily because of it. So if we close the curtain, it actually blocks the way of the front row. So you then have to walk round it. And we say to families to leave it open because then you're walking closer to the coffin and can have that little final goodbye. Whereas one of the other crematoria, the catafalque is not central at all. It's often to the right. So to go and say goodbye to it, you're actually going out of your way. So closing the curtain there doesn't impact on the room, doesn't necessarily have an impact on exiting. So yeah, it can be situational as well.
Yeah, and there's another chapel in our area where to pass the coffin, you would not do that on your way out.
Yeah,
the catafalque is completely at the front, and all the guests leave from the midway point.
So yeah, you double back on yourself.
You have to kind of orchestrate that as part of the exit. That please feel free to come up and say your final goodbye. So yeah, I think that's all part of the discussion that you'd want to have with your minister or your celebrant or whoever's leading the service on your behalf, because it's something they'll have to instruct everybody about what's going to happen. And if you as a family would like that private time, because often it seems traditional, a very traditional way of thinking about it is the family will leave first. So those in the front rows will leave first. That feels quite respectful. And they'll be outside together before everyone else joins them. But for some families, that doesn't feel right and they want to remain behind. So you'd have to instruct all the guests to feel comfortable to leave. The family are going to remain here together and have a few private moments. Please feel free to leave ahead of them as the music plays or whatever you're going to say.
Yeah,
So,
we can be a bit polite, can't we? And kind of assume we have to wait our turn. But if that's not the family's wishes, if they want an empty chapel, and I know after my mum passed away, Tina, you were there, you were sort of privy to it. After everyone had left, I went back in myself just for a couple of minutes and had another piece of music that I'd added to the playlist at the crematorium that was just for me. And we told the chapel attendant there it was going to happen. So when she sort of looked at the running order, she knew that one was after the fact. And that was, again, it's absolutely fine to do that. There's no rules, there's no regs to say that you can't. It was something that I felt I wanted, a little bit of private time. So that's what we did.
Yeah. The other thing that I notice is that people want to touch the coffin or potentially be close to it and just kind of give a little nod in its direction. And you said, haven't you, Simon, in the past that people sometimes like to lay flowers? I've seen that, and I've seen also people take a flower from the floral display to take with them. So all of that is possible at the end point as everyone is leaving.
Yeah, and it's again, there's no such thing as right, and it's whatever you want to do. The take a flower, leave a flower, write a message. Some people do that. We'll leave pens so that people could write on the coffin. That's certainly not for everyone, but it's something that I've had in the past.
Yeah.
But there are still traditionalists that want the curtain closed, that want that feeling of committal in its entirety, and much like with a burial, and obviously burial is a different conversation with this because the coffin is lowered, it's not within reach anymore, you can't take a flower, but there you can drop a flower in or scatter some earth. There are other petals which we've done, there are other things that can be done, so there's always an opportunity to end the service in a way that you want.
Yeah. And I have seen some other things at play. So one of the crematoriums I go to doesn't allow naked flames, and a family were very, very keen to collectively light a candle, and they had a bit of a family joke about how much she loved a tea light. So we all went outside and gathered around in the area where the flowers are often placed for people to view them, and we just spent a moment and we just very briefly talked about lighting a candle. Everyone lit a candle. So that was outside at the end of the service, and because everyone was gathered around a picture of her and candles, and people were placing their candles on a tiny table, I almost had to say some words to allow everyone to disperse. And so I had to say something like, thank you for coming together to light a candle, and also remember her in this way. And you might now like to either go on to the wake, or you might like to enjoy the grounds. And sometimes if there's not a formal wake or a gathering afterwards, that is something you can invite people to do at the end of a service, or as I did when you're outside, which is to say, as you go on into your day, if you have time to just enjoy the grounds and reflect and walk around, you'd be very welcome to do so. So that's always possible in a nice setting like a crematorium or a burial ground. Often have lovely gardens and benches and places to just be.
Yeah, burial grounds are a bit of a tricky one at times as well, because you do end up with the grave diggers hovering around a little bit because they obviously have a job to do and they have to finish as well. And the same at the end of a cremation, that there is usually a service behind, that there's more to go on. So we have to manage that a little bit. And it's not us rushing or really trying not to rush the families, but we do have to be acutely aware of other things going on. And we have burial grounds around here that, as we come towards winter now, 2:30 in the afternoons for last burial, because you think it's getting dark at 4 o'clock come December. That gives the gravedigger an hour. It's not a huge amount of time before it's pitch black. Yes. So there's a little bit more going on sometimes than people realise as well.
That's right. And to put everything in order. And crematoriums are interesting, actually. I mean, there's a couple in our area who've just got coffee vans and places that serve refreshments in their car parks. And that's almost a way of kind of scooping up people who, either arrive very early or linger after the service for whatever reason and aren't going on to maybe a family wake or something like that. So I've always felt there should be more done with that. So I don't know if you've been to Taunton Crematorium. They actually have a cafe, a coffee shop. It's just off the car, just kind of within sight, but not quite as you exit. And it draws people away because they go, let's go and get a coffee before we go off if they're not going on to a wake. So yeah, I'm amazed more don't do it. And I'm glad to see a couple of our local ones starting to realise that it's quite a good thing to do. And it's quite interesting. And there was a lady, this is quite an almost comedy moment, Simon, because a while ago, I did a service and a lady had a rose on her lap and she was halfway down the chapel space. And I thought she'd intended the rose to be for the person who died. And so I approached her quietly and said, if you want to bring your rose up either at the end or I can place it for you or whatever. She said, it's not for this person. She said, I just thought while I was here, I'd pay respects to my aunt.
Okay.
Who's also somewhere in the crematorium. So she come to the service and the rose was intended for her to go for a walk afterwards, see her aunt's grave and place this rose on her aunt's grave. And it was one of those moments that was almost kind of amusing, really, because I think she thought I was going to take this rose off her. But
you would have thought...
There are other reasons for being there, I guess.
Yeah, that's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd have that sat in my lap for half an hour to then take it away with me and do something else with it. But I suppose. Yeah, I thought that.
It was a funny moment because I thought I was kind of facilitating her to put this rose somewhere, and she was determined that I wasn't going to take it off her. Quite rightly so. So, So the other thing just to mention, of course, is if you don't have your service in one of the places that Simon and I have predominantly been talking about, you might have a service in your own home. You might have a service in a village hall, in a care home. And, it's just finding those endpoints for those kind of services, really. It is, as Simon said earlier, there's lots of routes you could go down, but if the person is with you and their coffin is leaving but everyone else is not, then it will be almost like standing up and saying goodbye. Might be something you want to do depending on the energy around your funeral service. You might want to applaud the person as they leave. You might want to
what did we do recently? We had a family that he had a certain way of saying goodbye. And I think we had everyone in the chapel say goodbye to him in that manner, didn't we?
We did. Use the words he always used on the phone. Love you, bye.
That was it.
Every time he finished a call, whoever he was talking to. So that felt really fitting to do that. Or it could be, in a care home once, the person wasn't present. They were having a private direct cremation, but we had the service. And at the end point, we just said, it's been a lovely fitting goodbye for Mary. And now everyone's just going to move towards the back of the room where tea and coffee is served. And we'll be talking about them further. So, sometimes if everything's happening in one space, you'll just need an end point moment to signal to people that they can get out of their seats and be on the move. And sometimes, like you say, Si, earlier, music can do that as well. So you clarify for people this is the end point, you play the music, and then they feel that they can move out of their seats.
Yeah. I think generally then the takeaway, as is always the takeaway, but there are so many options. There are so many choices. Speak to your funeral director, speak to your celebrant, have a really good look at what you want it to look like, because those private moments can be really good. They can also be overwhelming. If you've got a lot of people in the room and they all want to say goodbye, that's going to take 10 more minutes out of your service. You've got to be aware a little bit of your surroundings and what's going on, and be led by the guys that do this all the time. Ultimately, we know how to make it work and how to get it in time. And my goal is always to not say no. Always to not say no. Is that what I meant to say? I know what I need to say.
Just say yes whenever you can.
Yeah. Double negative. Yeah. But yeah, to try and facilitate it, try and make it happen. So have a really open, honest conversation. And if you don't know, you don't know. This is not something you do very many times in your life. This is something we do every day. So have that conversation.
Yeah, and I suppose the very final thing I was going to say is please do look at the funeral director and celebrant or minister, and they will direct you to where the exit is. Because before now, often there's an entrance and it is different from the exit door.
Yeah.
And before now, I've seen people turn around and try and exit like you would off an aeroplane, some from the front, some from the back. And you could see funeral directors and celebrants going, over here, this is the way, the door that's open. So look to us and we will help you understand which way to go out of the building.
Yeah. Very well said. But okay, that was the end. That was the exit, the last moment. So, as always, any comments, any questions? There's notes in the contact in the show notes, all the social medias, all that sort of stuff. Do get in touch. It's where we get subjects for our conversations from. So, anything you want to know, just get in touch. But thank you for joining us today, and we will hear you next time. Take care. You've been listening to Good Goobyes, the Funeral Facts podcast. Please do like, subscribe, comment and share. Drop any questions on our social media, on Instagram, or in the text option in the show notes.
Si and I are qualified professionals, but we always advise our clients to seek any additional support from medical practitioners if they need to. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. Stay well and be kind to one another.